Let's look at the fantasy basketball waiver wire. Who's being added? Who's being dropped? What should we be looking at? Which players are maybe poised to pop off? Michael Bolton?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you're everything I need and more. It's written all over your face. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so hit the thumb up, hit the subscribe, ring the bell, and leave your comments down below. So we're talking waiver wire. A quick explanation. I'm not really going to be discussing much about the schedule. We do that on the daily streaming shows. We've done that on the weekly preview shows. So when we talk about the guys and their overall value, we're more looking holistically. I'm looking across the next 3 weeks here, which is for those of you who aren't finishing your playoffs at the correct time at the end of week 21, we're talking about the default Yahoo playoffs. So just giving some value across that period. But of course, there are going to be so many wild things that happen over that period that you've got to be adept and nimble to move around and make the moves at the right time. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we're going to start with, and we're going to start with must-roster players. Just guys who are sitting at below 60% rostered, who I just don't think should be sitting available on the waiver wire. We'll start with category leagues. Amen Thompson is putting up some really good numbers. Now, they're not letting him run wild. They're not playing him 32 minutes. There are some troubling things sometimes when he gets like 26 or 25. And you're okay, what's going on here? But he only really needs 25. He's shooting the absolute lights out. Now, by shooting, I mean high field goal percentage. But he shouldn't be sitting on any waiver wire. I think Trey Mann's an interesting one, right? Trey Mann's last game was really good. Really strong numbers. Trey Mann plays another game on Tuesday and then has a horrific stretch of like 2 games in 8 nights or something. But then after that, there's a 4-game week, there's a 4-game week. I'm talking with Trey strictly on the basis of what are you going to produce every game that you play? And for that makes him a must-roster player. The schedule is really negative for the Hornets. So again, this is all going to depend on a lot of different scenarios. You got to buy in week 21, then Trey Mann's a must-roster. You're in a roto league, Trey Mann's a must-roster. You're going to comfortably win the week, Trey Mann's a must-roster. You need to open streaming spots to get games in? Well, you can't do that. You can't have him in that spot. But his production means he should be rostered. Jalen Suggs, it's always iffy with Suggs because you'll get these games where he has like 6 points and you go, geez, what am I doing? But I think what's happening at the moment with them putting the ball in his hands a little bit more, running as the exclusive point guard, I think we've got to look at him as a must-roster player. Aaron Nesmith, he is with no Ben Mathurin, obviously nobody healed. Nesmith is putting up some really good numbers. And the last one on my list there is DeAndre Hunter. Now, we know what DeAndre Hunter is. He'll get you points, and that's it. Some days it comes on high field goals. Some days it comes on low field goals with low points, and there's nothing else. But the opportunity, at least for the time being, remains there for DeAndre Hunter to be pretty useful. In points leagues, some of the same names. Amen Thompson's there. Trey Mann is there. And then Scoot Henderson is an interesting one. It really is baffling the way that rotation is running. Scoot is on a minutes limit, apparently. Yet, the first 2 games that he came back from injury were his 2 highest minutes games. And the ones after that have all been lower. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know under what circumstance you would say, yes, we need 42 minutes of Dalano Banton and we need him to lead the team in shots. That doesn't seem like good coaching, but it's Chauncey Billups. So I am hesitant with Scoot, but like at some point, Surely he's just going to start and play 32. Surely. I don't know. Karis LeVert, with Donovan Mitchell re-injured and giving a rather sort of cloudy view of where he's at. LeVert's value is back up. And I know Asar Thompson's been sick for a week and I don't know what's going on. I think we still want to have him. Now, again, if we're talking desperation, streaming, getting games in, that's going to be hard to deal with for a bloke who's got the worst illness in the world. But otherwise, he does seem to have that longer-term value that I think is, I think makes a bit of sense. What about droppable players?
Get that garbage out of here!
Again, we're not talking schedule guys here. We're talking about players that if they're on your roster, you can look at them and go, maybe I do need to open up a spot for streaming. Maybe I could take a flyer on somebody. The guys that I'm not sure that you're going to regret if you move on from. I got PJ Washington at the top of this list. Now, PJ is always that guy who can have 20 points on 6 shots with 7 blocks and then have 2 points on 12 shots with 1 rebound. That inconsistency, the minutes inconsistency, he'd need to get 35 minutes a night for me to feel comfortable having him as a must roster, and he doesn't. So see you later. Not a rosterable guy, or not a must. Kelly Oubre, one of the worst category league performers out there. Yes, Melton is still out, but it hasn't really mattered for Oubre. Even when he has a good game, what is he, the 140th best player? That's not a guy that has to be held on to. Jordan Clarkson sits at 74% rostered. The part of the reason why I don't think you need to hold him is that the Jazz are shamelessly tanking at the moment. They are putting guys on ice the exact same way they did it last season. Markkanen and Clarkson suffering injuries that are going to keep them out way longer than they should. Clarkson's already hot and cold. And if you're cold, then gets added onto the games that you miss. Well, I don't want to hold on to you. Andy Wiggins, I think, is here. He's okay to have, absolutely. But I don't think it's a must. Too many sort of names and bodies in that rotation at the moment for him to feel super confident about the value you get. I got Bob Portis on that list, and that seems pretty silly. You're watching this just after the Bucks put up a huge performance. He put up a huge performance without Giannis with 31 and 10 against the Suns on Sunday. But again, it's without Giannis. We've seen him do that many times. As a general rule, the Bucks don't have a strong-ish schedule, and Portis is not that must-roster player if Giannis plays. And then Buddy Hield, who just is doing nothing. He is looking bad. His minutes are down. He's not shooting well. No justification, I don't think, for holding him. In points leagues, some similar names here. Bud Hield's at the top of the list. Herb Jones is there. Herb Jones is a very iffy. He's been iffy all year in category leagues. Because there'll be weeks where he goes on these insane runs where he hits 50% of his threes and he has 2 steals and 1.2 blocks. You go, Jesus, this is unbelievable. Then he has the run where he scores 5 points. He takes 1 shot a game and he doesn't get a steal for 3 weeks. But in points leagues, what he does doesn't translate. So no, you don't roster him. Andy Wiggins, PJ Washington, we've talked about. I think Wiggins' teammates, Mr. Thompson, is not someone that we need to be rostering either. Clay is hot or cold. Now, again, we're talking holistic, longer term here. We can look at Clay's last game. He had 26 points on 50-odd% shooting, which is awesome, clearly. But is that what he gives you every game? Obviously not. He doesn't. So, when we're talking about this guy as a must, I don't think Clay falls into that bucket. And then Jonas Valanciunas doesn't either. He just doesn't get 20 minutes a night anymore. And even in a category league, that's just not enough, man. I don't think you should be rostered in that scenario when you're just not playing enough minutes to matter. So free yourself of the scourge that is rostering Jonas Valanciunas. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to get those professionals that you need to help you and find the right people for your job. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It also gives you access to the professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of this while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you get that many qualified candidates in front of you. In fact, it's so easy that small businesses report that 86% of small businesses report that they get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn is always trying to find ways to make this process easier. Now they've got a tool to help you write your job descriptions, making that process easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, let's go on to having a look around and seeing who has been added recently. We go to Miami at first. The most added player is Caleb Martin. He's up 18%. Makes sense with the injury to Tyler Hero, but more importantly, the injury to Jovic and now the absence of Jimmy Butler. We talked about this on the preview show yesterday, saying Martin was going to have a bump with Jovic out, and now Butler's out as well. So, yeah, there's big opportunities here. Whether this lasts long term, I'm not sure, but the Heat do have a really strong schedule, so you can roll with that. Absolutely a fine add, and we talked about it a lot. Gaz Trent's up 16%. We know what Gazza is. He's a points and threes guy. With no RJ Barrett, there is value there for him, a little bit extra, a few more shots. And he's generally been taking advantage of it. So just keep rolling with that, although they've got a pretty weak part of the schedule coming up. But unless he gets hurt again, there's some decent numbers here for Gazza. Bilal Coulibaly is one of the most added players of late. I'd be a little bit worried because I'm recording this before Sunday's game, and he's just popped up on the injury report as a late injury addition as questionable with a wrist sprain. Never a good thing. The Wizards are starting to get into tank mode. Tyus is out. We know Bagley's already out, but then we got Denny Avdia, who was legitimately injured. But now Kuzma and Bilal have just popped up as well. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great. Al Horford, one of the most added players. That's surely just for Sunday because he will not play on Monday. And then they have a Friday, Saturday back-to-back, so you're only going to get, what do you get, one game out of him next week? Two games out of him next week. Sam Hauser, great ad across this weekend back-to-back. We knew the Celtics were going to sit guys, and they are, so Sammy Hauser's a great ad there. And with Asar Thompson remaining out, Simone Fontecchio has been added in almost 5,000 leagues. Those bottom three names are the top Yahoo ads. The top three are the ones that we track on Basketball Monster. Simone Fontecchio with Asar Thompson out is a pretty strong ad there as well.
Get that garbage out of here.
So who has been dropped? Who's been the most dropped players over the last 48 hours? Number one is Jacques Landale. Landale has been dropped in 20% of leagues. Last game, they went with Jeff Green over Landale, which was surprising. I thought Jock had played pretty well and Jeff Green had not, but we saw Ime Udoka make that switch. And if you're at risk of that switch being made, then you're not a must-roster player. So if you want to move on from Jock, go ahead. No problem. Norman Powell, down 15%. Somehow he is only officially listed questionable for today. I didn't think there'd be any chance that he plays. I still don't think that he plays. Dropping him in advance of that doesn't seem ideal, but we'll find out. And I don't think it'll care, actually. I don't think it'll care. And Preston Chua down 14%. I think that does make sense. Because we saw, out of nowhere, Isaiah Hartenstein, minutes limit, 24, 24, 24, 24, 24, 24, 24, 24, 24. We've got to keep him safe for the playoffs. 24, 24, 24, 24, 28. What? Yeah, okay. So now Hartenstein's getting 28 again. Chua played only 20 as the backup, and that's not enough. Now, I don't know whether Hartenstein will get 28 every night, but this came out of nowhere. And 28 of Hartenstein is more than enough. And it means there's not enough for Chua, so you can move on. Everyone's jumped off the Vasilije Micic train. I get it, 2-game week, but they do play on Tuesday. So I'm not sure that I would have been super quick there, and I'm doubting that it's 5,400 weekly leagues that need to make their lineup set on Monday, because then that is a clear drop. It's a weird one. I'm not sure I would have gone that hard on it, but I get it. Alexander Walker, Nikhil. He's down almost 3,000, as is Grant Williams. Cool. Grant is not someone I would bother to hold through to the Tuesday, and Alexander Walker is a fringe player at best. Like, he's a 14-team league guy most likely. And there's just no necessity, I don't think, to hold on to either of those guys at this point. So that's definitely reasonable. What about hot players?
Happy birthday.
Who has been rolling as a top 100 guy over the last week? Well, a lot of the names that I've already mentioned. But these are 6 other guys that have been doing that same thing. Number one is Derek Lively, who is still 44% rostered. Now, we already know that Daniel Gafford is taking over that role, but Lively is still getting some stuff done. It does help that one of those games, I believe, was against the Bulls, where he scored 20 points as a reserve. And he has only got 2 games coming up as well, Tuesday and Thursday this week. He's worth monitoring as a stream guy for blocks and field goals, but not much more. What about the pencil Harrison Barnes? Barnesy. With Trey Lyles out with a knee injury, we're seeing Barnes' minutes go back up. And his last 2 games have been okay. They've been pretty good. Now, I'm always going to feel really like hesitant about adding Barnes and going, yeah, Barnes is the guy. That's not where we're at in 2024. But at the moment, there are a little bit of extra things going towards him, and that's okay. So it's not the worst move to stream him. Luke Cornett's been top 100. Well, with the absences of Porzingis and Horford going to sit the back-to-back. The risk you have there is Tillman taking some of his minutes, cutting some of his lunch. But Cornett's okay. Jonte Porter's going to be horrific with field goals and not going to score, but he'll do everything else. So there is some value in getting Jonte in certain situations, and top 100 without scoring well is interesting. Trace Jackson-Davis, with Steph back, played still 21 minutes and was useful enough. Probably is a 12-team league player at the moment. And then my mate, Rui Hachimura, has been a top 100 guy over the last 2 weeks. Anthony Davis now dealing with a corneal abrasion with the absence of still of Vanderbilt and Wood. I don't know when they're coming back, but Rui's got a pretty strong role. He is a DeAndre Hunter type player. He never rebounds or steals or blocks or get assists, but he does score, and when that's efficient, that makes him a top 100 guy. And that's what's happened over the last week. So you can take a flyer, and I'm not super interested in it, though, as you probably already know. Today's episode is also brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, your size, and your budget. They do all of that shopping for you, and it's the easiest way for you to update your wardrobe this season. You give them your style, you give them your size, you give them your budget, and they just go and work their magic. Searching through all of the fashion print magazines, onlines, blogs, vlogs, to find out what's happening. They make the style. In fact, they make the trends. And they tell you, here's some stuff that I think you're going to pop in. They send it out to you, not on a subscription basis. You don't get one every month. You just give them the go-ahead and go, hey, box it up. They send 5 things through. You check them out. If for some reason, and I don't know why this would happen, but if for some reason you don't like them, well, it's easy. You send them back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. So I don't have to worry about that part of it. But they nail it. They know what they're doing. They're stylists. That's what they do. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. You can get started at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That is stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Okay. What are we looking at next? I think we are looking at the injury replacements. Now, at this time of year, a lot of the guys that we're talking about are already injury replacements. So, some of those names that we've already mentioned fit into that gap pretty nicely. But there's some other names here, and 2 of them are in Cleveland to begin things. George Niang and Isaac Okoro. Niang with Wade and Strus out. Okoro with Strus and Mitchell out. Mitchell sounds like, well, he's not going to play in the next game, but the way he was talking made it sound like he was going to have another 2 weeks off. But I don't know that. And that brings up an interesting decision. Do you have to drop Donovan Mitchell? I don't think you do at this point. I'd like to get an update on it again. But yeah, it didn't sound great. And Okoro's not a huge upside player, but he's at least going to be in that mix. Well, Nyang's a guy that can hit some threes and get a couple of rebounds and get some scoring going as long as Wade and Strus are out. Taylor Hendricks. Utah is packing things in, and Hendricks looks great. I've been talking about Hendricks for months. And I did say that I thought that I tried to stash him in Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl because I reckon he's going to have value when we get to the playoffs in March. And I couldn't stash him. I had to drop him. I had him for a month, and then I had to move on. But here we are. It's happened, and he's putting up good numbers. And he is an injury replacement, sort of, with Lowry out, but I think he's going to have value anyway. I've got Bruce Brown on that list. With the absence of Rowan Barrett, Brown is getting more run. And I don't know how long he continues to do that or what they do with their rotation. But for the moment, Brown has got a nice little opportunity. Kyle Anderson replacing Karl Anthony Towns. And you got Rudy Gobert dealing with his rib issue. Obviously, Naz Reid is really benefiting from both of those blokes being out. Both of them, it's a huge benefit. We've seen that Reid is not as good when Gobert plays, but he's much better when Gobert is out. And that's the same as Anderson. Last game was great from Kyle. So some value for him. And the last one is Jackson Hayes. But that's a little bit of an asterisk. We know that Davis hurt his eye last game. So Hayes would be the ad if Anthony Davis does happen to miss time. But that's probably just going to be a short-term thing, would be my guess, in the worst-case scenario there. What about some other names that we need to take a look at just to wrap this show up? Because there are some names that we do need to talk about here. We're going to start with that guy in Portland, Dalano Banton, because I just can't get this guy figured out. I can get it figured out in that I don't think he is very good, and my opinion on that has not changed. He's an inefficient scorer who can rack up rebounds and assists. What I don't understand is the way that Portland is using him. Let's look at his minutes, shall we? Last 6 games. 38. Okay. 38. All right. 22. Off the bench. Next game. Starting. Oh, okay. We're back, are we? Oh, no, we're not. 19 minutes in that one as a starter. Okay. Sick. 42 and then 42. What do I make of that? Yes, Jeremy Grant has missed the last 3 games. In fact, Jeremy Grant, you'll be shocked to know this, in March, has missed 6 of his last 8 games. That's incorrect, actually. He's missed 7 of his last 9 games. All of them in March. I, for one, am absolutely stunned at that development. That is unbelievable that that's happened. But Banton's just been all over the shop. And this is where when I talked Scoot earlier. Scoot came back, played 24 minutes. Cool. Then the second game played 33 minutes. And then I was gone 18, 26, and 24. Minutes restriction that gets instituted after you've played 33 minutes? That's what I don't get. Why is Banton playing 42 and Scoot playing 24? It's not like Banton's dominating. But if someone's playing 42 minutes and they're letting him lead the team in usage, which he's pretty close to doing, then you've got to roster him. It doesn't seem like a long-term path, but it's happening. So we do it. Bryce Sensabaugh is getting decent run in Utah. His last couple of games have not been very good. I think he's going to have a better run at things. The problem we're going to have is, what do they do with Lowry? What do they do with Clarkson? John Collins rested last game. Is he going to be on an every other game rest diet? I don't know. Sensabaugh's probably one we can just leave and then stream in later, but we've got to be aware of him. Greg Jackson. The Grizzlies, it's very fishy. The whole Desmond Bain thing was fishy. Grade 3 ankle sprain. 6 weeks. All right, cool. He's actually going to cut that timeline in half, according to reporters. Is he? Well, that seems like a lie. Well, he didn't obviously do that. And then the initial 6-week timetable turned into, I think it was 8 weeks, 9 weeks. I think it was out 9 weeks in total. Which is okay for a grade 3, but grade 3s are normally 12 to 16 weeks, so something's a bit off there. And then first game back, he plays 32 minutes. No minutes restriction at all, apparently. After this team's been just jerking guys around all over the place. Jaren Jackson playing more minutes now than he did at any other point during the season. GG Jackson, who's been coming off the bench this whole time, plays like 37, 27, 37, and 35 the last 3 games. Like his minutes are now through the roof. Is that what's going to happen from now on? Because if GG's playing 37, then the actual lack of efficiency doesn't matter as much. You can just bludgeon your way through that, which is what is happening. But I don't trust a single thing. Like Santi Aldama played 39 minutes, fake sat the game before, had 29 and 27 the 2 before that. Like what of anything of this is real? Who's in, who's out still remains a big question mark. Who starts, who doesn't remains a big question mark. But GG's there at the moment. So I'm actually okay with getting him. Corey Kispert, the Wizards are, nonsensing. No Denny. Kuzma's on questionable tag. Tyus Jones is out. Bilal's questionable. Bagley's out. Shamet's out. So if Kispert gets 30 a night, we have to roster him. We just wish we had more clarity on the long-term statuses of those blokes. I am putting Julian Champagne's name there because we saw this last year, and I think we'll start to see it this year. Champagne was starting and playing, and you've seen that there's been a change. Like 19, 19, 10, 17 minutes. And then 34, 28, 35, 26. So we are pushing into, Champagne is a starter's minutes player now. Because Malaka Branham is on the pushback. His minutes are dropping. Champagne is not a 12-team ad yet. He's a 14-team guy. He's a 12-team curiosity. But it's pushing towards him. Honestly, his brother had a big game for the Wizards yesterday as well. Keep an eye on him also. And the last one does go back to Washington. It's Richaun Holmes. He returned. He started last game, and I thought he was mid. Because he is mid. Like, he's not the guy that he was, because even back then he was not a great on-court player. He was a pretty good fantasy guy. But he wasn't super good in that first game. We'll see what he's like in this game on Sunday. I think we should roster him while he's starting for sure, but as a longer-term guy, I'm not really super confident that he's going to come out and blow us away. And that is a waiver wire show. So go ahead And double bang, go ahead and thumb up. Go ahead and leave your comments down below. Go ahead and get the players in and win your matchup. For me, it's all playoffs in all my leagues, and I reckon I'm going to have an absolute stinker, to be honest. We're going to go through it on the daily recap show later today, the results. At the moment, I think Mitch Casey's going to get me an industry pickup, which is annoying because I was first in that league all season, and I've been number 2 seed in Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl all season as well, and I think I might lose all of them. We'll see. It's borderline. It's very borderline. We'll get a recap on that later, and that's going to annoy me, but we'll find out. So check out the shows later on today, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.